Hey compressed air friends, I have a question for you. And this question applies whether you're in sales or whether you're a technician, but it's going to hit a little differently depending on which role you're in, because as a salesman, you have the ability to get in front of this problem. As a technician, you only have the ability to call it out once you see it, but it's very important. So as a salesman, when was the last time you checked with your install contractor and made sure the material that they're using on all the seals, valves, and other fittings in that compressed air system they're putting in for you are compatible with the type of oil your machine uses? And as a technician doing the startup on these systems, are you going through and checking your valves and making sure that the seating material being used is compatible with the oil in your machines, or the O-ring and the press fittings are compatible with the oil that your machine uses? Now I can hear every technician in the comments now, that's the installer's responsibility, bro. It's not my job to check their work, bro. But when that system fails due to improper sealing techniques and improper seals and valves and things like that, who's that customer going to call? They're not going to call the contractor that installed it. They're going to call you. And I can't tell you what a weak dick move it is when you go, oh, the installer didn't do it right. Well, who's the technician? Why didn't you catch it? That's the question. You're supposed to be the expert. You're there to do the startup. You are there to make sure that that system is good to go. You signed off on it. You, sir or ma'am, are responsible. All right, so to show you guys why this is important, what we're looking at here is a pretty standard 3-inch hand valve available on Granger. Price on this bad boy, $289.93. And this is pretty much what any plumbing contractor is going to install when a 3-inch hand valve like this is required. The problem you're going to run into is, you see right here on the screen, the very last thing this says, this is an EPDM seal valve. Problem with that being, EPDM does not play well with oil. So if you have an oil injected rotary screw, you're going to have some aerosolized oil in your system. I mean, it's just going to happen. It's either going to happen normally over time, or it's going to happen when a condensate drain fails. It's going to happen when a dryer fails. Somehow that condensate's going to get into that air system at some point, and it's going to cause that seal to fail. Now you can see the price on that valve is about $289. If we go to the exact same valve, but this time we have a Buna seal, price for that valve jumps to $806. So the plumbing contractor you've hired to install your compressed air piping system is going to choose the cheaper valve because he wants the job. Not so much because he's concerned that the seals are going to interact with your compressor oil properly. So as the salesman, if you have not impressed this upon your contractor and told him, this is what I want you to use, he's going to use the cheaper option. Now, as the technician coming to do startup, you can normally, I don't know if you can really see it so well on here, but you can see right there, there's a blank spot there on that valve. There's going to be a nameplate right there on that valve, and it's going to tell you exactly what the seating material is and all that kind of stuff. And if you show up and that is EPDM and it is not an oil-free system and has not been an oil-free system since the beginning, obviously as technicians we don't have the authority to come back to a contractor and say you have to change this, especially if we didn't hire them. But what you can do is you can go back to your end user, your customer, and you can say, hey, look, the seating material of these valves is not right and it's going to fail in the future. So take that and do what you will with it. Now, the other thing you can do is I'm actually working on putting together some installation guidelines and things. And right here, I have this handy dandy little chart that will tell you that depending on what kind of oil your compressor uses, these are the type of seals you need to be using. And you can see Viton's pretty much universal. So as a salesman, you can impress upon your install contractors all seals, gaskets, O-rings, valve body seals, everything in this compressed air system must be Viton. If for whatever reason you don't want to do that, then you're going to have to work with your contractor and say, well, we're installing a Solair with Solube, which is a PAG POE blend, so it has to be Viton or Teflon. Viton is preferred, though. That's why it has a little star next to it. Or you can say, well, we're using, whatever else. We're using an ISO 68 diester oil, which I guess that's not a good example because that, again, has to be Viton. We're using petroleum-based oil or mineral-based oil. Then you got a little bit more flexibility there. But for the most part, Viton is the recommendation for all that. Okay, so what does all this mean in terms of you're going to start up a system and you want to make sure that all of the seals, O-rings, valves, everything is all kosher and compliant with the type of air compressor that you're using? Well, number one, you have to know, are we using a oil-free compressor or is it an oil-flooded compressor? Most of your standard plumbing contractors are going to install standard plumbing valves, standard plumbing pipes, even standard modular aluminum systems that are made for water and not compressed air, which means most of your seals are going to be made of EDPM, which is great for plumbing. It is king as far as sealing in the plumbing world is concerned for water and things like that. It does not perform so great when it comes to oil. And that's where we run into problems. That's why so many of these modular piping systems fail. That's why so many of them leak. That's why so many valves fail in these systems, is because the internals are all made of EPDM. So what you need to do is, number one, assess, is this oil free or is it oil flooded? If it's oil free, EDPM's fine. It's not going to bother you one bit. As soon as you introduce oil to the system, you can no longer use those EDPM seals or O-rings or anything else. Even your copper press fit O-rings are mostly going to be EDPM. So what this means is now we have to not only know, is this an oil flooded system? Ooh, I got some glare there. There. We have to not only know, is this an oil flooded or an oil free system, but now we have to ascertain what kind of oil is in these compressors. You look at, say, a standard PAO oil, like a Quinsin Plus, for example. Most of your, even again, copper press fit at that point is out because those are EDPM seals inside of there. But most of your modular piping systems that are specifically for compressed air are going to be just fine. Transair, air pipe, all that stuff. No issues with a standard synthetic or a mineral-based oil. Like I said, your Quinsin Plus, your Palasin 45, your like aftermarket stuff, your SH46, your Aeon 9000 for the Gardner Denver fans out there. All those things are going to be just fine with seals in the in your standard compressed air piping stuff. Those are made of NBR. It's a nitrile-based rubber. No problem at all. Now, once you move into your higher end lubricants, your PAG POE mixes, your POEs, anything that has an ester in it. So Solube, for example, is a PAG POE mix. So is Ingersoll Rand Ultra Coolant. Then you get into something that is a straight ester, like your Quinsin XP, for example, would be a good example of a straight ester oil. Those are not going to play well with the NBR seals used in most compressed air piping systems, like Transair, for example. It's all NBR seals. The esters are going to eat those seals, and especially when you get into your ultra coolant or your solube, where it's a PAG POE mix. The PAG side of it is actually going to penetrate that NBR rubber much better, and it's going to pull that POE, that ester, in with it, and that's going to soften it, plasticize it, cause it to start breaking away. So what you have to do is, with a PAG POE or a POE oil, you can no longer use NBR seals. You have to use Viton. Viton's the only thing that'll hold up to it, other than Teflon, your PTFE, seated valve, stuff like that. They'll hold up just fine. Anything that's got a Teflon seal in it is going to hold up just fine. But as far as your rubber, your seals on your fittings, even your flex hoses, they can't be NBR. Most of your aluminum pipe manufacturers have, pre-made lengths of flexible hose that will hook right to their systems. And if you're using anything that has POE in it, anything that's an ester oil, you can't use those hoses, because what'll happen is it starts to break them down. And because most of the time your hoses, they're an NBR inner layer and an SBR outer layer, and it's the inner layer that breaks down first, so you never see it on the outside. So that inner layer starts to break down. It goes from this big to this big, and you never see it. You're introducing artificial load onto your air compressor. If it's on the, your flex hose is usually on the outlet of the air compressor. So now you've introduced artificial load into your air compressor. And when you go to change your line filters, you're going to see black little specks all over your line filters. You're going to be like, where in the world is this coming from? Well, it's the inside of that hose flaking off and getting caught in your filters, and it gets caught in your condensate traps and everywhere else. So a little bit of looking into it I've done thus far, the only modular aluminum pipe company I have found that offers Viton seals for all their joint pieces and everything, and they also offer Teflon seated hand valves, is Airpipe. Shout out John Schwartzman. Admittedly, I've been a Transair guy my entire career, but after digging into this stuff a little bit and figuring out that, even when you look at, like, in the Transair catalog, it says that the seals are good for mineral oil and synthetic oils. Well, synthetic is a very, very loose term. What it actually means is most of your PAOs and petroleum-based oils. What it does not mean is PAG POE mixes and POE oils. It does not handle esters. So my recommendation is to just make everything Viton. Make that system universal, because if you go in and you run a whole distribution loop and everything else, and you do it all in Transair, standard air pipe, whatever, even press fit copper, but you run that whole loop, and say you're putting Quincy's in today and they're filled with Quincen Plus, which is a PAO oil, ISO 45, no problem with that, no problems at all running the standard air pipe or Transair or anything with an NBR seal, no problem at all. Let's say, years down the road, they get replaced with either an Ingersoll Rand or a Solaire that's running a PAG POE blend. And now you have an entire warehouse or an entire manufacturing plant full of NBR seals that are now getting hit with this ester, and they're going to deteriorate and fail, and you're going to be chasing leaks like crazy. So that would be my recommendation there. Also, when it comes to flex hoses in a system where you have any kind of an ester oil or an ester blend, make sure they're made of Viton. Even if you have to, have a hydraulic shop make them for you and just put NPT ends on either side and use standard fittings or whatever to to get them to adapt properly. I mean, it is what it is. And that's not to say that I'm like down on Solube or down on ultra coolant or any of these blends or anything. Personally, I think Solube is an amazing oil. I've seen it clean up some very, very varnished machines. You switch them to Solube and it gets it right out. I mean, it truly is an amazing oil. It just needs some consideration like anything else. I mean, you don't put turtle wax on a Ferrari, so when you're using a high-end oil, you got to make sure that all your other chemicals and things are, and your other hardware and stuff is all compatible with it. That's all it comes down to. And as the salesman on a project, you should be making sure that everything in that system is compatible with what you're giving your customer. Even if, you know, let's just say you're a Quincy guy, you're selling a QSI 500, it comes factory filled with Quincy Plus. Okay, cool. You still have a responsibility to tell your installer, whoever is putting that system in for you, hey, you can't use EDPM seals on this stuff. It all has to be NBR seals are fine, anything like that. You have to impress that upon them and let them know that, hey, this is how it needs to be. And then for us technicians, when we go out to do the startup, obviously we're going to know what kind of oil is in that machine. We should know what kind of oil is in that machine when we're starting it up, but we need to be walking through that system and seeing, hey, is everything here compatible? And yeah, it's a lot to put on the technician. No, it's really not, because you can walk up to the very first hand valve in that system and look at the plate on it and go, okay, pretty safe to assume the rest of these are going to be the same. Is it EPDM? Get it out. Is it not? I mean, if you're using a standard PAO oil, pretty much anything except EDPM is acceptable. So as long as it's not that, you're good. Solaire, Ingersoll Rand, if we're running Solube or ultra coolant, we got to make sure those are Viton. And then same with anything used as an ester oil. Again, if you're a salesman, you're selling a compressor and you're going to factory fill it with Quincy XP, you better make sure your installer knows, hey, this needs to be, everything in here needs to be Viton. All your valves need to be PTFE seats, all that kind of stuff. You know, let's start actually being subject matter experts and start actually designing stuff that's going to last a lifetime. We want to talk about reliability and you know, designing with purpose and things like that. Well, this is an area where I honestly feel like not much of us know a whole lot about it. So let's change that. Let's start educating ourselves. Let's start making sure that everything in that system is designed to work together so that you end up delivering a package for your customer that lasts. So anyway, that's my rant for the day. Again, this is interesting stuff when I started digging into it and found, I learned quite a bit just from digging into this business here of seal compatibility and things like that, and what works with what lubricants. So it's an interesting subject to me. It's been an interesting journey for me so far. And like I said, I was kind of stunned to find out that you know, even these manufacturers that are manufacturing modular aluminum systems for compressed air, it's almost like they didn't take it into account that, oh, some of these are going to have ester oils in them, and we need to make sure that we at least have an option to upgrade our seals for that. And so far, obviously you can't look at all of them. Geez, there's a million of them out there, but all of them that I've looked at, which I looked at a handful of the major ones, Airpipe is the only one that says, yeah, they come with NBR seals, but we have an option for Viton seals, so you can just change them out in the field. And they're like, yeah, most of our valves are NBR sealed, but we do have an option for PTFE seals. Very cool in my opinion. I really wish they'd give us an option for Viton flex hoses. John and I discussed that already. Hopefully that comes. So anyway, that's what I got. Y'all have a good one.